Hello, my name is Matthew Phifer. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I help people who are in toxic relationships, whether it be a romantic partner, family member, friend, or workplace dynamic. And I read the emails of people who send me emails who have questions about a certain situation. We go through the emails, we digest the email, and we come up with a solution that they can move forward with. And so if you have a question for me that you would like for me to answer on YouTube, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattphifercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattphifercoaching.com. Make sure that the email is 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and you're very direct and specific about what your question actually is, because I do read the email online, and if it is too long, if it's 2-3 pages long, I can't get through all of it and I won't read it. Also, if you want my help, the fastest way to work with me is to connect with me in my Toxic to Triumph community. In that community, you get replays of different webinars that I do every morning. You also are able to participate live in webinars for free. You can also participate in my podcast, asking me and whoever I'm interviewing that day different questions, and we go into a Q&A session. So it is a great place, and you have a forum that you can talk to other people as well. All of that and everything else that I do is linked down below. So with all that being said, let's get into this email. So this email is from a woman who is dealing with a potential covert narcissistic father. Right, so we talk a lot about, I read a lot of emails from people who are dealing with a romantic partner. This one happens to be from a narcissistic father. So let's get into this. So this email reads, "Hello, Matt. I want to take the time to thank you for taking the time to read my email question. You are very, very welcome. I appreciate the work that you have done for narcissistic victims / survivors. Around this time last year, my father and I got into a massive argument in the car, and I screamed I hated him because he got under my skin so much by throwing accusations and insults in my face." So one of the things I want to mention, that I want to bring out, is that it is very common for toxic and narcissistic people to get into arguments, to have outbursts in the car. It's something that's very common. It's something that not a lot of people talk about. The reason why is you have to remember that people who are narcissistic love having control, right? It's all about control. And if you think about when you get into an argument in a car, you can't go anywhere, right? You're stuck in the car, so you're forced to listen to them. And quite often I don't do one-on-ones anymore, but when I did, and we would come up with an exit strategy for someone who's trying to get out of an abusive situation, one of the things that I told them is don't get in the car with them, right? If they know that you're about to leave, if they know that you have an exit strategy, do not get into the car with them, because quite often you would see them escalate. They would begin to speed down the road, begin to yell, begin to sometimes get physically abusive, because they know that you can't go anywhere, right? So let's continue with this email. "I am 24 years old and I live at home, and before I yelled at him, we went out to get furniture for my remodeled room. We then ended up not getting my bedroom furniture because he went to Home Depot to buy doors, and I waited in the car nearly 2 hours for him." Same type of deal, right? You have one person that's driving, that's taking his precious time, leaving his daughter in the car for 2 hours because she can't go anywhere. Right? This email continues. "He was in a very bad mood," and I want to make sure that we're very clear on this. Right? He was in a very bad mood. That is not an excuse for abusive behavior. It's very common, and you're going to hear some elements of a trauma bond here. Right? And people who are trauma bonded will say things like this. Right? They will preface the bad behavior with, "This person was in a bad mood. They were having a bad day," almost in a way of either completely justifying the abuse and the bad behavior and the mistreatment, or in a way of saying that this was the reason. And quite often, the reason why I want to point this out is that people who are dealing with a trauma bond, right, you think that they did this because they were in a bad mood. No. They did this because of who they are. Right? Being in a bad mood, having a bad day does not justify abusive behavior. It doesn't. right? But people who are trauma bonded, right, quite often, when they think that this person was in a bad mood, they think this person was having a bad day. And for the person who is trauma bonded, they think that if I can correct the day, if I can prevent this person from being in a bad mood, I can possibly prevent the abuse, right? So let's get back into this email. So this continues. He was in a very bad mood, started cursing, slamming his fists into the seat because he broke one of the bedroom doors he bought and slid them into the car. I stayed quiet. I did not engage in his behavior. It got worse as we left the parking lot. Think about this, right? She stayed quiet, but the behavior got worse, right? When we're talking about people who are narcissistic, quite often they want a reaction, especially if they think that you're happy, because your happiness, right, is a threat to them. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit. So this email continues. I stayed quiet. I did not engage in his behavior. It got worse as we left the parking lot and started taking his anger out on me, right? Because there always has to be whenever a narcissist feels angry, upset, jealous, they always have to project that onto somebody else, right? There always has to be someone who carries the burden of their negative emotions, right? Quite often it's a scapegoated child. This email continues. I felt uncomfortable in the car also because the car wasn't big enough for the doors, and he bent my seat forward, and I could not sit up straight. My neck was down, and I could not reach for the seatbelt. He saw that I was silent and upset. That's when he went off on me, and I let him have it after, right? Never in the 24 years of my life had I yelled at my dad, and I never said I hated him until this evening. I felt awful, right? So this is what we would consider, right? This is something that is considered reactive abuse, right? So the reason why I wanted to point this out is that notice how she feels awful, even though, right, you were put in a very, very awkward predicament where this person was projecting their anger out on you. And you stayed silent to try to not to escalate things, but things escalated anyway. This is something that's common with narcissists. And the reason why I wanted to point this out is that for a lot of people, they struggle with their part in the abuse. Because going back to what I was talking about, that he's in a bad mood, right? We're justifying his behavior. He's in a bad mood, right? I feel bad for yelling at him. Right. I have a feeling that if we were face to face, if I talked to you about this and I asked you questions about the feeling of walking on eggshells, you probably could identify with that I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells with this person. Right. And the reason why I want to point this out, because this feeling awful for saying that you hated him, right, is you clearly stepped outside of your own character. You don't like hating people. You don't like yelling. You probably don't like confrontation whatsoever. Right? Even though you noticed this buildup, right? And you mentioned earlier your father getting under your skin. When I hear someone saying this person got under my skin, that means that they were pushed to their limits. Right? So for those people who follow me for a while, you know where I'm going with this. Boundaries. Our internal boundaries are being violated. What people don't understand about boundaries is that every single one of us have boundaries. We just don't set them, and we don't execute on them properly. If we could rewind this situation, you were probably upset long before you yelled, "I hate him." You were probably upset back when you were sitting in the car for 2 hours because you brought it out. And that doesn't make you wrong. You're entitled to how you feel. Right? Where I'm going with this is that quite often we don't set boundaries with people early enough, and then they continue, and especially if we struggle with setting boundaries, they continue to push, and someone like this, the way that you describe your father, they continue to push. They want the reaction. They feel better about themselves when they have control, even if that control is control over you emotionally. Notice what you said. You stayed silent, but his anger went through the roof. He continued to escalate. because he was looking for what's called narcissistic supply. Right? Narcissistic supply, meaning that he wanted to feel better about himself, that if he can project his anger onto you and get you pissed off, right? Now it's not about him. Now it's about you. And this is the reason why narcissists engage in reactive abuse, the reason why they push your buttons, the reason why they get under your skin, the reason why they intentionally piss you off. Right? And it's important that when we're healing from this, that we understand where our own personal limits lie within 5 areas: mental, emotional, physical, our limits physically, our limits financially, and our limits around our time and our energy. Your limits were pushed, right? I don't care who you are. You can be the nicest person in the world, but if your limits get pushed enough, you are going to have these pops, right? You're going to step outside of your character, and because it's outside of who you are, right, you're going to start feeling like the problem is you. And if we're not careful with narcissists, that's exactly what happens, is that they begin to twist that reactive abuse into gaslighting. Look at you. Look at how you're behaving. Look at what you've done, right? This is all your fault, making you feel responsible for them. Right? For someone who is, for people who have worked with this, who work along this base, we see this for exactly what it is. Right? Reactive abuse after being pushed to, you were probably also very frustrated at the fact that you didn't get the bedroom set that you were actually out to get. That all of a sudden this whole day that was supposed to be about you getting a bedroom set now got twisted to what it is that your father wants. Right? There was probably a lot of frustration that built up, that all of a sudden, pop, right? What are these pops that I keep talking about? Resentment, right? Anger, right? Continues to build up. And because we're not in a position to feel comfortable, we should always feel comfortable around people that love us, right? And I do air quotes because when we're talking about someone who's narcissistic, they're not going to receive our emotions well, right? They're not going to receive your boundaries well. But in a healthy dynamic, you should be able to speak up very clearly without feeling like you're walking on eggshells to prevent these pops. Right, so let's get back into this email. It continues, I cried, then apologized. He played the victim. See what happens. Right, we see what's happening here. Notice who was the original person pissed off. It wasn't her. Who was the original person angry? It wasn't her. Right? This is a form of gaslighting, right? Where this person needed to project, right? This is what narcissists do. They need to project their own negative feelings onto somebody else because they can't be responsible for their own feelings. And so they need to cause chaos somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, look at you. Right? Look at you. You're the one crying. You look at how you're treating me. I can't believe that you would ever tell me these things, right? Exactly what you described, playing victim, right? I cried, then apologized, and he played victim, talking about his childhood. Notice what happened. We went from buying a bedroom set to sitting in a car for 2 hours to getting yelled at, getting squished in the car, getting pushed to a point where we're beyond our character, to now all of a sudden everything flips to this person. Now they're playing victim because with a narcissist there always has to be a winner and a loser in every single situation. However, if they're the ones that are losing, they turn themselves into a victim. Look at what you've done. I can't believe that you would ever yell at me like this. I was just trying to do my best. And all of a sudden there's a problem. Let's continue on with this email. On the drive home, I was crying, and he acted as if nothing had happened because it's not about you for him. It's not about you. We have to remember, narcissists lack empathy, right? So the ability to put himself into your shoes isn't there. I knew from that day I was dealing with something serious, and now I see my dad as a covert narcissist. My question is, whenever my dad gets violent, like slamming his fists and screaming at my face again, what do I do? During the holidays, he is at his worst, and if I walk out of the home, he will be manic following me. right? I do not have money. I don't have money to move out, and no one I can move with, right? He has never hit me, but he has hit my mom. I'm his golden child, and he is sort of obsessed with me, and I need to leave in secret when I have the money. He will hunt me down. So first of all, I'm very sorry for your situation, right? And this is similar to a lot of people who are in these type of dynamics, right? A lot of people who are married, and this issue is a lot more common than what people might think, where we have an adult child who is trapped in a situation, right? So let's break some of these questions down. What do I do when this person is screaming at my face? What do I do? So number one, right? You do what you need to do to stay safe. You don't want to escalate with them, right? You want to, even when you're still in the same home, you want to create physical distance and reduce the amount of time that you're spending with them, right? Because what we need to do is we need to put together an exit strategy, right? We need two different plans, right? We need a plan A that might be a little bit more, might take a little bit more time, but we also need a plan B of if this person escalates to a point where we just literally just can't stay there. And so we need to start network. If we don't have a place to stay right now, we need to start networking. We need to start talking to other people. We need to start talking to friends. We need to be in this situation. We need to be careful because this is family. So we really can't talk to other. We may not be able to talk to other family members, but we need to talk to people who are safe, and talk to people and be open and honest about our situation, and begin to connect and begin to network with people, right? I'm not sure if you're at school. I'm not sure if you're on work, right? But we also need to start putting our money away. I have a feeling in this type of situation that your dad probably controls your money. And if that's the case, the way that you would handle this is that you would secretly start a separate account, right? You could get cash back whenever you go to the stores and that sort of thing to be able to put money away, right? And start putting a plan together, an exit strategy. And as he begins to escalate, right, we want to do what's called gray rock. Carefully, because gray rock has the potential of escalating people like this even more, right? When he's escalating, we don't want to defend ourselves, right? We don't want to put ourselves in a position, right? We want to allow for the storm to boil over, so to speak. If you can go to your room, if you can go to another room, right, and allow for him to yell, scream, break things, whatever he needs to do, right? But do what you need to do to stay safe. However, because of everything that you described, right, and if this is the type of thing that's happening on a regular basis, we do need to have an exit strategy to keep you safe long term, right? This is a very unhealthy dynamic, in particular when I'm hearing the golden child, that he's obsessed with you, you don't feel safe to leave, right? We have to remember you're 24 years old, right? And he's hit your mom before. And talking about the holidays, right, it's very common for narcissists to escalate around the holidays. Going back to what we were talking about with the reactive abuse, guess what? The holidays are one of the things that people don't understand about narcissists is that all attention has to be on them. But here's the thing. That's common knowledge that narcissists love attention. What a lot of people don't realize is that they love any attention. It doesn't have to be positive attention. Sometimes they like the negative attention more than they like the positive attention. So we have to understand that this escalation, that this behavior, right, around the holidays, but you probably could think about times when around your birthday, right, that your father would escalate as well to make everything about him, right? So we have no control over him. We have to accept the behavior for what it is, right? But there's only three things we can do. We can change ourselves, but that's not going to help in this situation. He's going to be who he is, and we're talking about some things that are very dangerous. We can change ourselves. We can accept the behavior, so we need to accept him for who he is, understanding that he's not going to change. And when I say accept, it doesn't necessarily mean tolerate, so the only other option is to leave. And even though you may not be able to leave right now, it doesn't mean that we can't put together a plan and put a plan in place to be able to leave. And I'm feeling that if you start networking. I don't know your financial situation. That's not something you talked about here, right? But I would begin to talk. I would begin to open up to different people. You might actually qualify to be able to stay in a domestic violence home, right, for a period of time. So I would begin to network in those type of situations as well. But the key is that a lot of times people are afraid in these type of situations to open up and to talk to people, right? But that's exactly what we actually need to do, right? So we need to start to build a community and a structure and a support system. The other thing that I would say about that is when we're coming up with an exit strategy, a lot of times people don't want to leave their comfort zone. They want to, they might have it nice in terms of places to live, right? Their room might be nice, that sort of thing. What we have to understand is that you might be inconvenienced for a period of time, right? But that is worth your peace of mind. That is also worth your physical safety. So thank you very much for writing in. Once again, for those of you who want to write in, who have questions that you would like for me to answer here on the YouTube channel, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattphifercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattphifercoaching.com. Make sure you keep the email 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and you're very direct and to the point of what your question actually is. Also, the fastest way to work with me is to connect with me in my Toxic to Triumph community. All of that is linked down below. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video.